Hi, I am some dude who's been wanting to do YouTube for a while, and uh, I guess I'm finally doing it. I've kind of made some videos in the past. This one's kind of experimental. Uh, so I tried to think about some things that I am just broadly interested in, and I thought it would be kind of cool to make like gaming videos because I like to play video games, but also I spend a lot of time thinking. I My job requires me to think a lot, and then I don't know, I'm a deep thinker, I guess. So I thought it would be kind of cool. I thought it would be kind of cool to do like a somewhat unedited let's play where each video I just dive into a random topic, right? Um so like this one I thought could be about perspective. Um and I don't really have an outline for this. Maybe you guys can provide some feedback on like how I should be doing this. What kinds of topics to go over, like little suggestions like, oh, you should tell us your next topic and we can give you some like things, questions that we have. I don't know. There's a lot of ways we can do this. Um, but for now, I think I'm just going to ramble about some random thoughts I have on the topic of perspective. So, I guess the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is that perspective is not, it's very easy to define, but it's very difficult to explain, right? Let me, give me half a second here because I'm getting like a weird audio delay and it's kind of driving me crazy. Bro says he's gonna do an unedited thing and now he's gonna have to edit this out. Okay. Uh, so that's that taken care of. So the first thing I usually kind of jump to when I'm thinking about perspective is like, if I walk into a room and you walk into a room, the first things that we're going to look at are very different. So, like, if there's people in the room, we'll probably both look at people, but we might look at different people. Or we might not both look at people. I might look at a person and you might look at the dog. Uh, but it's just like, I don't know. We're all people, and we all just look at everything differently. And even if we're looking at the same thing, like this chicken right now, look at this chicken. What do you look at? The first thing you might have looked at was the red thing, but you also might have looked at the eyes. And that doesn't seem super important right now, like in the grand scheme of this chicken in this game that is not real. Oh, that's like a whole nother type of perspective, is like perceived perspective versus like, what's actually going on around you. But anyway, looking directly at that chicken in different places where I might look and where you might look, I'm kind of rambling here, I guess. But what I'm trying to get at is like, if you look at a person and you look at their nose before you look at their eyes, every time you see that person, their face in your head is going to be like built off of their nose, right? And not their eyes. So, like, the first feature that you see in a person could play a role in how you visibly see them for potentially the rest of your life. And this also goes into self perception too, right? Because if you look in the mirror, uh, you you look at your face, right, and you only see this one dimensional, like same image of your face every single time you look in the mirror, uh, and other people will never see you that way ever. They don't see this 2D flat version of you with only the features at the very front of your face. They see like how your jaw contours. And yeah, you can do things like take photos or like use multiple mirrors, but you'll never really know what you look like to other people. And that's just very odd to me. People spend their whole lives trying to look good for other people, and they don't actually know what they look like themselves. And you can get close, but like, we don't really have the technology to visibly look at yourself in 3D. the closest thing I could think of is if like someone took a detailed model of you in VR, but then you would be looking at a digital version of yourself. And it might have some of the same characteristics, but you're not walking around every day in VR, right? You're walking around every day in your flesh world. Uh and like you might look like that for a few minutes in VR, right? Not like I don't know, just that's not what you look like really. I think I've made that sort of clear. Anyway, to summarize that point, I guess my point is you can never truly know what you look like. And it's very difficult to kind of make yourself. My cat is going crazy right now. I don't know what he's doing. I hear him scratching something. But it's very difficult to make yourself look a certain way or be perceived a certain way by others because it's just not doable. Um, Another thing is perception of like how do I word this? Perception of intent maybe is a way to say this, right? Give me 1 second. I gotta go check on this cat. What is he doing? Okay, I'm back. But perception of intent. So like when someone's talking to you, they can say, "Hey, you look like you're having a bad day," and you can perceive that as either, "Oh, I must look like I'm having a bad day." If you are having a bad day, you could perceive that as, "Oh, it's very obvious that I'm having a bad day. I appreciate that this person is reaching out." If you're having a great day, you might perceive that as an insult, right? Like you can never truly know. Well, you can find out, but usually in most of your interactions, right, you spend all this time. This is probably really boring. Why is this ocean so big? You spend a lot of time just assuming, because if you spend every single conversation where somebody's like, "Can you hand me that bag?" and you're like, "Which bag?" and you're like, "That bag," and you point at something, and there's another bag there, or like even if a bag is sitting on a table, like you assume that they're talking about the thing that you have recognized your whole life as a bag, but maybe to them a bag and a table are like the same thing and they're talking about the table, and that's not realistic. But like you have to make these assumptions or you'll go down these like forever logic loops, and that's just useless to like everybody, I feel like. I have a hair on my mouth. What other things can I say about perspective? You can manipulate other people's perspective, right? So you can lie, right? That's an interesting kind of thing that you can do with perspective. Uh, you can manipulate other people's perception of you. That's one. Let me see if I have any. There's perspective is a broad topic, right? But it's not. Hmm. I think it's very interesting because it's probably one of the most common things that cause confusion, I guess. I don't know. I really should have structured this a little bit better. Um, I guess the thing that interests me most about perspective is how it can radically change your life as well. So if somebody's generally got a positive outlook on life, they're going to look at everything sort of like an optimist. Whereas if someone has a negative outlook, they're going to be very pessimistic about everything, right? Uh, and like being pessimistic can like long term lead to like unfulfilled like life. But being optimistic, you know, you're going to be jumping at opportunities, doing things that maybe other people would not necessarily consider as like a doable thing. So I feel like a lot of people, and these are just opinions, and also I'm not super. I'm thinking about the topic a little bit, but also I'm speaking, right? So it's very difficult. So take what I say with a grain of salt, for now, anyway. Um, but like, if you have a negative outlook on life, you're gonna be like, "Oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this," and just generally you're not going to be as fulfilled and happy as a person. I feel like most people would agree with this. But if you're optimistic about literally everything you do, if you're one of those crazy people who can like be shoveling manure and be like, "Oh, I love this. This is so great." You're never going to have a bad day, and ultimately you're going to live a better life. So like that's the power of perspective, is to try and control your own perspective so that you can kind of do whatever you want. Well, maybe not whatever you want, but like it'll definitely help you do the things you want to do, right? Uh, other. Oh, we're in water. I didn't even notice that was water. Oh, see, there's another thing. A perspective. You can. Some people probably are seeing things that aren't there, and other people are probably seeing things that aren't there. Schizophrenics. That's a really interesting thing. Their perspective on the world is drastically skewed, right? Like they have hallucinations potentially. They because they have these hallucinations. Oh, I need a sword. They have these hallucinations. They're seeing things that literally aren't there, and they are like outcasted for long periods of time throughout history. Uh, whereas like a normal person doesn't have to undergo these things. So that's like one way that perspective can influence your life, right? Whether if you have a diseased perspective, uh, you can also have like socially ill perspectives, right? So like the whole incel movement, if you movement is maybe not the right word there, but uh, they they have this like poisoned version of perspective of women, and like that's like an interesting like that's a topic you could go down for like ever and ever, and just how small events in your life will change your perspective so much uh that you get to that. And then also you can kind of go back to the manipulating perspective, and if you've got like celebrities, right? People listen to celebrities, um and they'll take kind of the things that celebrities deem important as important for themselves, and they'll bring that into their perspective of the world. And you make the same kind of argument with religion that all this goes on. And even right now, your perspective might be changing on how important perspective is and how much it influences your daily life, just because you're listening to some random dude yap about perspective while he dies to a skeleton in Minecraft. And if you ask me, that's kind of just interesting. That also another thing about perspective is not only uh like in your mind, like it's your biology, right? So like you've literally got perspectives hardwired into your brain. uh I'm dying here. I guess I should eat. The skeleton's gone. I need to get some more fish. But like perspective is almost entirely like how your neurons interact with each other. So like that's another interesting when a celebrity tells you like, "Oh, hey, you should really consider doing this exercise routine," right? And if you value that celebrity's opinion, for example, or it doesn't have to be a celebrity, it could be like your mom, dad, hero, uncle, brother, whatever. Uh, like you hear about this exercise routine, you can literally go out and change your entire body just because someone else's perspective, or not even necessarily their perspective, just their words will change your perspective. And now you're going to go out, you're going to start exercising, doing this thing. You're a healthier person, and your muscle anatomy has changed, and your like brain structure has changed, and like just all this stuff going on in your body, may probably even your like eating habits would change, all just from something as simple as like how you perceive a person. uh and I think that can also be dangerous, right? I mean, look at what happened during um a certain event during World War II, right? Like one guy convinced, well, I'm sure there was more than one guy, but for the most part, one guy convinced a bunch of people like they should listen to what they say and just because he's got some like status around his name. People were like, "Oh, okay, this guy must be onto something," and like 6 million people died because one man had a tainted perspective. So perspective is very much like a deep influencer of kind of everything that we've got going on in the world. And even now, I just had my perspective changed. I thought that we were doing a YouTube video, right? When I started this, but as I've existed in this medium that I'm in, I've realized this isn't a YouTube video at all. This is a podcast. And I don't know how that's happened. It wasn't supposed to be a podcast, but it definitively is a podcast. And I don't know. You're just listening to some guy yap about perspective on his perspective of perspective, and I don't know. I think my biggest takeaway from perspective is how much it can be changed, and how much it can change the world. And I don't know. Maybe you don't think that's cool. Maybe that's my perspective. That's another thing. Like, what I find interesting and what I'll include in my perspective is almost completely random. Like, you don't get to choose what you're going to believe or what you're interested in, right? Cuz if that was the case, everyone would like choose to be super interested in eating healthy and working out and doing all these things that are great for you, but like you just don't have interest. And interest plays such a huge role in everything, right? And like perspective and interest are kind of tied together because your perspective will influence your interests. Uh wow, a jungle biome. Uh and you know, your interest will influence your perspective. And there's just so many things that will alter perspective, that perspective can alter. And I don't know. Like I keep saying I don't know, but it's not like I can force you to be interested in what I'm saying. But like, you know, next time you're having like a disagreement with someone, just think about how everything you're saying could be perceived how you're saying it and how you're intending it to be said, or how it could be like completely different. And like you could be saying tomato and they could be hearing tomato. And consider that, because you know, if you are thinking about how you've said something and how that's affected like another person or in their thought process or something, you can figure out how they're understanding what you're saying. You can understand what they're saying and like make an effort to really get to the root of why you disagree. And maybe you it's something super mundane, like what the best fruit is. Uh right? So maybe you love apples and they love bananas. But like think about even that. Uh that's their biology, right? Their taste buds have influenced them to like bananas, while your taste buds told you like apples. But maybe that goes even farther back than that. Maybe it's not even your taste buds. Maybe just when you were younger, someone important to you in your life gave you apples, and they had someone important in their life give them bananas. And the whole reason behind that was because the person who gave each of you that was had their own perspective on which thing that they liked the most. And I don't know. I think that's very interesting. Also, perspective changes with time. And I don't just mean that in like a, you know, for example, you've been watching this video and for the past like 10 minutes it's been nighttime and now it's daytime, so your visual perspective, what you literally see, has changed. But also, the longer you've sat here, you know, you're probably somewhat interested in what I'm saying. When you clicked on this video, you're probably unsure, but now you've kind of reassured yourself that, oh, hey, maybe this random guy yapping about whatever random thing is worth me spending whatever amount of time it's on. Or maybe this is just background noise and you're playing a video game and you're not really paying attention to the words I'm saying until right now when I'm calling you specifically out. But yeah, I don't know. It's just very interesting, I think. What other things do what are some you know what? How about this? I'm probably gonna wrap up the video here because I kind of just wanted to see how this will turn out. If people will watch this, I'll probably do like 3 or 4 more like this, just to get the vibe. But why don't you guys drop? I'm gonna ask you for a few things in your comments, right? Also, before you comment, you could hit the subscribe button. That's up to you. I plan to make some more videos like this. So if you thought it was interesting, I might actually, no, I definitely will structure out this a little bit better so that I'm not just yapping without, some thoughts to kind of build upon. Um, but you can subscribe if you are one of the people who die hard like this. Maybe you hit the bell. I don't know. Feel your life if you want. Uh, but I think you could leave a like. But my big point here anyway is why don't you share some thoughts about what you think about perspective in the comments, and then don't just be a guy who hears this and is like, oh, well, he's not talking to me, he's just talking to the general people. I am genuinely interested in what you guys think about perspective and how it influences the world, and like how it influences your decision making. Drop an example of how you think perspective is altering things in the world, or like drop some other topics that you think would be interesting to talk about, whether that be for this video, for maybe another video about perspective, just really anything. And maybe engage with each other, right? Like if you see someone who shares like a thing and you're like, oh, that's interesting, and you can share like a little thought you have about what they said in the comments. That would be pretty cool. Uh, and if this is a cool system that people like, then who knows? Anything can happen. And maybe next episode I'll even build a house. But I think if nobody responds, right, the next uh, the next topic I'd like to dive into is I thought it would be kind of neat. Maybe I have a few topics, but I think it would be kind of cool to talk about um how your words can influence biology, right? Like I kind of said that here, but I think that could be interesting. I have like a whole list of ideas actually. Let's see. I could also talk about uh uh well, apparently I wrote down an intro for this. I could talk about like expectation, success, loss, confidence, just anything really. Uh I'm kind of down for whatever. Uh Also, I don't know. I'm very interested in your guys' thoughts on the topics that I'm going to be covering, and I don't know. I don't know the YouTube thing not well, but I've always really liked videos that have made me think about things differently, and maybe this does that. So, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe this was a total waste of time. I don't know, but thank you for coming down to my TED Talk, and next time I'll build a house maybe. Cool. Goodbye.